It may sound overly dramatic, but we might just have our modern day version of Pete Rose. When you think about the last 24 to 48 hours, and I'm talking particularly about Chauncey Billups, Hall of Famer, who's a coach who, if everything reported is true, is intimately involved in gambling. It's a really famous player who made over $100 million. Now a famous coach. It would be our modern day Pete Rose. But there's a few different ways to come at this. And I think there's a way to work the Texas connection into this entire discussion. The gambling scandal, or scandals, there's really two separate scandals of the past 24 hours, I think for conversation's sake, have multiple layers. Okay? The cases are different. Very different. One is a pair of players making sure their betting friends, the betting buddies, whatever they are winning by hitting the under on prop bets. And they do this by pulling themselves out of games. And this is connected to a case a couple of years ago. So it's not necessarily new. The other part of this story, the gambling scandal of the NBA, is a bizarre old school case of rigged underground poker games. This is Hall of Fame Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups, and he's implicated in this. And like I said, this would be a sort of modern day version of the Pete Rose story all over again. Now, he's not as famous as Pete Rose. I get that, but it's the same issues, the same complexity. The rigged poker games, and if guilty, he'll never be near an NBA arena again. None of them, if guilty, will be anywhere near anything to do with the NBA again. Okay, he made over $100 million in his career. And we can assume that he went this route because he's an addict. I think it's a fairly safe assumption. Why would somebody be that stupid and risk everything to be in a rigged poker game? And I think a lot of people would say almost immediately, that's an addict. An addict, unfortunately, as many of us know, will throw everything away. The stories are high profile because it's the NBA, partly or mostly. And I think the Kash Patel run FBI is looking for a splash. And some might say, by the way, myself very much included, it's a noisy distraction from a lot of ugly economic data points and Jeffrey Epstein talking points. I'm not saying these people are guilty of the crimes and that the Fed shouldn't have been investigated. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it feels like and sounds like a bigger splash than it probably needed to be. But it's not made up, I don't think. It's not Black Helicopter necessarily. Now, what you should be saying as part of this whole story, and if you followed the news conferences, as a taxpayer, you should be saying and asking the feds and demanding of the feds, where are these big fish mobsters you keep telling us about? Did you bring them down, or are they going to go down? I mean, that's another part of this, the shoe that needs to be dropped. Yeah. The high profile part of this is basketball players involved in scandal. But Chauncey Billups, if you're to believe the news conferences, is involved with mobsters. Do you get them? Isn't that the point of all of this? Sidebar issue, which I can't get away from. I can't get away from it. I'm disappointed you can't get away from this. And that is, I think we all should be asking ourselves why it is that we're appalled by NBA players giving insider information on injuries. And there's a lot to react to, but we are blown away by this. We're appalled by this. We're disgusted by this, but yet we're the same public that is never, ever, ever outraged over politicians knowingly, and honestly, not even caring if you know. They don't care. They practice insider trading while in office on our nickel. And we don't react at all. It's amazing to me. It's unethical at best for a current player, to be sharing insider information. It's pathetic and diabolical and illegal, should be, for politicians to be trading stocks on your nickel. I mean, we're cheering on the feds for busting these players, but we don't want the same enforcement when it comes to lawmakers working for us and cheating a system that's supposed to be for us. I find the apathy for our lawmakers trading stocks with insider trading to be pathetic and disturbing. But that's not the real story here. So circle this back to Texas and what it is you want to do about potentially addictive products. Because I think no matter what, we have to end up there. I'm betting that your political heroes in the state of Texas, those with an R next to their name in particular, you can count on them. I think pretty quickly, too. You can count on them to use this high-profile scandal to do two things. And you can set the clock to it. One, it's a chance to suck up publicly to Kash Patel because he's a Trump guy, and they will not miss the chance to do that. Two, it'll be chum in the water to say this. See, people of Texas, we don't need to expose you. I'm not even saying they'll say it like this, but this is what they mean. They're going to tell you, people of Texas, we don't need to expose you to the temptation of legalized gambling because stuff like this will happen. Okay, there has been a consistent push back on legalizing gambling in the state of Texas. It's what grandmas don't want, and grandmas in rural Texas govern this state. Okay, you live in Austin or Houston or Dallas, you don't govern this state. It's all about Republican primary voters, and Republican primary voters do not want legalized gambling. That's who keeps the people employed at the Capitol. So they're going to give that grandma in rural Texas exactly what she needs to hear now to keep pushing back on legalizing gambling when it comes up. And that is, see, we told you so. This is a rotten thing. You shouldn't be tempted by this sinful thing. Not here, not now, not ever. I think there will be a steady drumbeat about that. And you might agree with that. That's fine. Okay, but the two layers here to think about, and that is, and debate too. I mean, I would like to think that we would debate this stuff. I really would. This is kind of a time to think and react. But one, think of it this way. And I think this should come up on the state level. Did legalizing sports betting create this scandal? Now think that through. Because of the legalization around the country, 39 states and D.C., did it create this scandal? Did it prompt these players and maybe more to go where they did? Did it create the scandal? Or, other way to look at it, did it successfully out the scandal? In other words, legalized betting in 39 states and D.C., did it create healthy transparency? Right? Or, look at it this way, and I think this is what you're going to hear on a statewide level, or does it create too much temptation for athletes to cheat? There. Think of that. Now, the public relations part of this, and we could debate this too, is I think it's pretty fascinating how the NBA commissioner, Michael Stipe, I made that up because he looks just like the REM singer, but this is a huge public relations crossroads for the NBA. Is it a disaster? I don't know, but I don't know that I agree with that entirely. But it's certainly it's a delicate time because obviously the sports world is fueled, funded, propped up by the interest in gambling. I mean, it is what we do. Those advertising dollars are running through the media industry. Those conversations are a part of what we do every single day. It's part of the reason why you watch, no doubt. So they're really at a weird crossroads here, how to go about this. And it is opening night. A young star in San Antonio scores 40 points, and there is nothing else to talk about except this gambling scandal. So you got the PR response that's from Michael Stipe, who's coming out pretty soon. And The question is, the problem for the NBA is it going to make you skeptical? Answer this for yourself. Is it going to make you skeptical that games are fixed? That's the fear of every professional league, that you're nothing more than wrestling, right? All of a sudden, the games, people don't think they're in doubt. And that ruins the industry. So the fear is, and what you could do about it, is really all about whether or not you're skeptical the games are fixed. Or the other side of this, are you more reassured that if players are providing insider tips or purposely missing shots, they get busted? Which one? The other layer is for taxpayers, and that is, and this is not a new and ethical legal dilemma. It's not. It's been debated. I've talked about it on my shows for years in the state of Texas, and I think this ends up right in that place. And it's interesting. And we're going to disagree on this, and that's cool. But this is not a new ethical, legal, or medical dilemma. And I'll say medical, psychological. How do you think we should deal with addictive products? There. I mean, this is going to be brought up, and it should be brought up. And it should be front and center for caring voters, if we have such a thing anymore. And that is, how exactly do you want to deal with addictive products? Sinful products, your political heroes in the state of Texas will say. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to reduce exposure to, quote, addictive products? You want to keep them above board? What do you want to do? How do you want to micromanage addictive products? All right, my take on the first part. All right, there you go. There's multiple levels for you. And I really think anybody should have an opinion on all this stuff because it's not going away. I mean, the betting part is here. The problems with betting are here. The debate about addictive products, of which sports betting is very much one of those, these sinful products, what is it? How do you want to go about this? You've got to ask yourself that as a consumer and as a voter. The first part, my take on the first part, and I think, and I don't care if we disagree on all these, does legalization create transparency, and does it out the problems that have already existed? Okay, perfect example, and there's a lot of this, and I think a lot of it is well thought out, but I think we have a real problem, okay? One, I think we've made this way too hard on ourselves as thinking consumers and voters. One is the assumption that politicians and lawmakers can sanitize everything, that there's somehow some perfect answer, that we're going to addict-proof a product or idiot-proof a product perfectly. In other words, I'll outlaw that product and we won't have any problems. Or I'll pass a law that allows that product and we won't have any problems. No. We can't sanitize any of this. It really is a matter of what's the best path forward that doesn't suck as badly as the other ideas suck. There's not a perfect answer. Legally, business-wise, morally, any of those. There's no perfect answer. There's going to be bad stuff. We seem to struggle with that because we assume, I think this is when we give too much power to politicians, we assume they sanitize everything. I think that's the last person to trust for anything moral or medical. That's the last person I would want in the equation. But I think we've set ourselves up for failure, particularly in the state of Texas, when we listen to these righteous, holier-than-thou scumbags preach, I'll fix this, I'll keep it away from you. So I think legalization does make it more transparent. I'm not saying you don't become an addict or don't do stupid stuff with the product like gambling. I think it's worked in this case. I think it's probably working in other cases. So I'm going to argue yes, very much yes. Legalizing, I'm not saying there are not addicts. I just said there's no way to sanitize this. But I think making sinful, addictive products legal for us to figure out, us to deal with, makes the whole process more transparent. To keep pro sports above board and prevent point shaving, if that's a concern, and it should be, I'd say legalizing sports betting has completely worked. Not that we're not making mistakes. We're making mistakes all the time. We're doing stupid stuff all the time. That's another discussion. But I think making a product transparent for people and its problems is far better than passing a law that it doesn't get above the table because they're going to do it anyway. We are going to use sinful products. We're going to use addictive products. We are users. The question is, what do we do to minimize abuse? Can you make everything illegal, then it goes away, we don't become addicts? I think just the opposite. And I'm not pretending for a single second, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, cannabis, that it doesn't create problems. So I think making it above board has worked here. I do. The NBA has 3 examples of players betting the under and pulling themselves out of games on purpose. Okay? We have 3 of them in the last couple of years. This investigation has been going on for a couple of years, right? That's what we're being told. So I'd argue that this is really reassuring that this is all we've heard. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been bet since betting was legalized in 39 states, not Texas. And in most states, the worst thing that has happened is these, outside of addiction, which is another discussion, but the worst thing that has happened is these players have been busted because it's above board. They're flagged. The betting sites don't want to be involved in the legal hassles. The platforms and their algorithms, I would argue, have flagged suspicious and insider moves repeatedly. And there's a great list you could find today at ESPN.com of gambling stories and convictions and all that stuff over the last since betting was legalized a few years ago. And these algorithms and these platforms have flagged people every single time. I mean, just from a sports perspective, which is only a small part of this entire discussion, just from the sports perspective, not only has legalization made the sports and media businesses bigger and more profitable, I think they've outed and made transparent what has always been hidden. What Chauncey Billups is accused of doing is completely separate to legal sports betting. He's exactly why you want it legalized. And that is these players, and this stuff may have been going on for a long time and we didn't know about it. Now you do know about it. So feel free to disagree on that. I think a lot of people do. And I'm not saying it doesn't minimize some problems. I'm saying it helps. The transparency helps. I think when in doubt, when it comes to addictive products, the transparency helps. Under the table, black market never ends well. Feel free to disagree. The NBA's PR thing, and I think this is interesting. We could debate this. The NBA's PR strategy, and it's complicated. I mean, that's an interesting meeting. How to address this. On one hand, you desperately need sports betting. It's your lifeblood. It's your business. On the other hand, you've got to come at this with some sort of soul and conscience. So let's see if you agree with me on this. This is just an opinion on how to handle this publicly by the lead singer of REM, who happens to be running the NBA. I'd turn it into more of a positive, and I think that comes with some risk. But let me explain how I think you have to do this. So the commissioner needs to say, NBA fans, the system has worked. A multi-year investigation. I'm making this up as I go, but this is how I think this is the way to go with this. I do. And I think a lot of people would say, well, that's insensitive. You're glossing over, you're not giving the feds credit or whatever. I think he's got to look out for his industry. And you can say, hey, look, a multi-year investigation has revealed 3 concerning cases. And these players will be punished if guilty. They'll be out of this sport forever. We've already proven to you that we have no tolerance for a player ruining your trust in the sport. We'll get it fixed. You can trust that our product is above board. You can trust that our sports betting partners, because I don't think you can tell them to go away. I don't think it's smart business to say F off, because I think the sports betting business is here and here to stay. But I think the commissioner needs to say our sports betting partners are going to make sure to continue with their algorithms and their investigations to out anything that looks out of the norm. We can trust them. You can trust them. We're going to continue to produce an ethical and entertaining product. That's the direction I would take, because I think doom and gloom, I wouldn't recommend it. I know it's easy for me to say, but I recommend trying to turn the narrative into a positive. I don't even know if he said anything yet. Probably not. So there's that part. There's the how do you come at this from a public relations standpoint. If you're the NBA commissioner, you've got to send a message. You got networks that have spent billions of dollars. You've got sports betting platforms that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, this is your industry. Is this a industry killer, or is this a time to say, see, it works? You can trust it. You can trust us. The second layer, this is complicated and righteous, and there's a lot that goes into it. It's been debated, and I don't think this is the wrong thing to debate. We've debated it in the state of Texas for years and years and years. People debate it all over the country. And that is, it's a familiar place, right? And it's this. How do you want to regulate, legislate, and treat addictive products? Okay? I don't think you get a pass on that. I don't. Certainly in the state of Texas, when this is going to come up again and again and again in terms of legislation. But I don't think we get a pass on that when it comes to a lot of products. And I'm assuming most of you are going to disagree with me on this, but I'm happy to make my case of how best to deal with publicly, legally, medically addictive products. Who can be abused? These products, we routinely abuse them. That is exactly right. We are guilty as charged. But not everybody abuses these products. Remember that. So there is no perfect solution to addictive products. There was no absolute. I know our politicians love to say everything is black and white, everything is right or wrong. There is no absolute on this. Plenty of you are going to use addictive products as intended. Plenty of us are going to make the mistake and abuse addictive products, and it ends badly. So I'm a proponent, if you didn't know already, very much a proponent of less government intervention unless it's to promote healthy competition in the marketplace. I am a militant free enterprise person. I find most people in politics to be just the opposite of that. I disagree with 99% of you when it comes to marketplace issues. And addictive products are very much marketplace issues. I'm not a fan, mainly because the Trump administration, policy-wise, is arguably, I guess you can make a case the Carter administration would be another, one of the most intrusive administrations of my lifetime. I don't find there's any regard for the marketplace and free enterprise. So, like I said, the Carter administration may be a close second, but whatever. So I'm not a fan of the state of Texas's nanny state policies. I've used the term for decades. It pisses a lot of you off. I don't care. I'm happy to argue it. I'm not minimizing the problems with these addictive products. Cigarettes, alcohol, fatty foods, gambling. There are problems. Yep. But I don't like the way our nanny state goes about it, because I don't think you should trust the nanny staters. But I don't think lifestyle choices, even when we screw them up, and lifestyle problems should be the business of Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, God forbid him, or Dan Patrick. I find it ridiculous that people that scream freedom, particularly here in the state of Texas, and personal responsibility when it comes to junk food, guns, and alcohol, you praise the government intrusion when it comes to cannabis and gambling. I find that to be hypocritical at best. So how best do you want to deal with addictive products? Decision makers are whom? Like, where do you want that decision when it comes to addictive products? Like, where should it be? I've seen a lot of this stuff. And again, I I think it's always healthy for people to say, wait a second, man, you can say, give us a chance to use the product, but don't act as if we're not going to become addicts and we're going to turn our lives upside down. I'm not acting that way at all. I don't have any reason to expect us to be perfect with these addictive products. Here's an example. This was a column today at Yahoo Sports. The inevitable bill of legalized sports gambling has come. Since the Supreme Court struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act in 2018, allowing states to legalize sports gambling if they choose to, the industry has been a machine brazenly conditioning our brains to accept all of it as part of the game simply because it's legal. Yes. Look, let me say this again. I know you'll disagree, and I eat nothing but healthy foods. McDonald's would like you to buy the French fries. Specs would like you to buy the alcohol. DraftKings would like you to open up an account and gamble. Fill-in-the-blank cigarette company would like you to smoke the cigarettes. Fill-in-the-blank cannabis company would like you to get the gummies. They would like you to purchase the products. Absolutely. Then how do we decide you using the products versus abusing the products? And where should that burden be placed? If I'm McDonald's, I'm going to sell you more French fries. We eat ourselves to death in this country. I'm going to sell you more French fries. Yep. That's what I do. If I'm DraftKings, you better believe I would like you to open up an account and bet. Okay. When you bet too much, who's at fault? Who's going to fix that? Who should fix it? Or who should stop you is the billion-dollar question before you open up an account. Should you even have a chance to open up a DraftKings account? Hell, I'd say, should you have a chance to buy that bottle of tequila? Or cannabis? Or the gun? We end up in everyone wants to be absolute. Everyone who feeds off its advertising dollars in Yahoo Sports, the sports leagues, team owners, even the media, kept shoving it in everyone's faces, buoyed by the idea that it's better to have a gambling ecosystem operating with oversight than in the shadows. It's really well written, really well said. I think it's an important distinction for everyone to consider. I very much agree with that. Okay? I very much agree that the gambling ecosystem is better with oversight than in the shadows. We're pretending that we're not going to abuse and use in the shadows, but we have a history of using in the shadows. So are we better off that it's in the shadows? Are we better off that cannabis is in the shadows? I mean, really? Why? How do you want to deal with addictive products? Because I do think this story. And I don't think it's right to elevate this to, saying, hey, look, these NBA players got caught doing something stupid. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal. But we're going to end up in a place, and I think it's healthy, of saying, wait a second. Because I'm sure some politicians are going to say this, particularly in red states. Maybe we should rethink that. Maybe we shouldn't be exposing ourselves to the chance that we might become addicts. I think it's going to come up. And even before it's debated in the state of Texas, people are going to say, why would we even give you a chance to do something so stupid? Why would I tempt you with the cannabis? Why would I even want to tempt you with the chance to place a bet? Because only bad stuff can happen. And that's not true. That's assuming you, the consumer, abuse everything. So we've tried the war on drugs. And I think this is a perfect example of that stuff. We tried the war on drugs. We tried the war on gambling. And we're no less addicts than ever before. My view on the war of drugs, again, I'm going to be completely different than most of you, is that it's a self-serving payout to contractors, DAs, and a police state. That's what I think it is. I don't think it's about your health at all. I don't think anything coming out of politics is about your health or your finances. And I think the debate about gambling is going to turn out to be the same thing. It's going to be about sucking up to, and I think in many cases it's law enforcement, DAs, and the police state. If we're really worried about our health, we would be attacking all of these problems from a psychological perspective and not a war problem. I don't think more guns and more jails seems to work. Do you? Is that where we need to go with this? Just make sure you never get a chance to gamble. If you do, we're going to throw you in jail. You think that's going to make less addicts? We're overeaters, right? We're over drinkers. We're over pill takers. We're over gamblers, probably of the entire world. So, how are we going to fix that? Make it illegal, right? That'll fix it. There's no fix. Let's say I'm admitting as a militant free enterprise person, we abuse products. We sometimes don't use products. But every addictive product doesn't create an addict. So those that aren't addicts far outnumber the addicts. Plenty of you use products. Plenty of you make bets. I do it myself. Plenty of you drink. Plenty of you eat some French fries every now and then. So does attempting to cut us off, does it solve this problem? I mean, we can now say when your lawmakers stand up and say, see, I told you so, Grandma, I'll tell the rest of them what you already know. Do not expose people to this sinful stuff. It'll prevent it from ever happening again. You really believe that? Because Chauncey Billups did it. Chauncey Billups did exactly what's been going on for a long time. Allegedly. You want it above board, you want it back where it was. Any of these products. I've always suggested there's got to be a better solution than criminalizing. I'd rather spend our money and energy on mental health and physical health solutions rather than politicians finding ways to criminalize everything or shut us off from everything that you're going to do anyway. I don't know if more jails and more guns and more prosecutions really helps us. But, you know, the Chauncey Billups thing is completely different. It kind of makes my point. I mean, the two players that are outed for point shaving, it is what it is. It's caught. It's dealt with quickly. It's not festering, really. I mean, unless there's a bunch of these problems that they've outed, but they say they've been investigating this for a couple of years. And we got three stupid guys who made an extra couple $100,000, which is less than what they're making already playing basketball, for pulling themselves out of a game. Okay. But then we got Chauncey Billups finding that underground. He goes and finds the underground. He finds the underground with really bad people who do bad things. And all of a sudden, losing bets turns into breaking legs. Losing bets is sort of like the cartels. You know, I want to keep my monopoly. That's what everything is about under the table. Keep the monopoly. Keep the monopoly. Because monopolies keep the profits high. The last thing anybody in the black market wants is for things to be legalized. All right, feel free to disagree. I think that's multiple layers there. There's plenty for you to jump off on. Hey, here's a recommendation backed up by my own experience, a great experience. And that is, I've been a client of DJC Law, and I can tell you this. You're going to get three things with DJC Law. You'll notice it right away. The difference is you will get peace of mind. They will take care of every single detail perfectly, and you will get the result you deserve. If you're injured by the negligence of someone else, fighting with an insurance company for any reason, trust me when I tell you, you will need DJC Law. Dan Christensen and his team of attorneys have a remarkable track record. I've known Dan a long time. He's a military vet. He's board certified in civil trial law, and I've been a client. So you can trust them. You will get the result you deserve. Check out teamjustice.com, and you'll see thousands of five-star reviews. The bottom line is, if you're in an accident, you need DJC Law. Contact them right away. 512-888-9999.